Ladies and gentlemen, there is a quiet strength in staying silent. In a world that is constantly screaming for attention, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. This isn't about passivity. It's about presence. It's about standing so firm in who you are that you no longer need to explain yourself to be seen or heard. As Oprah Winfrey once said, you get in life what you have the courage to ask for. But sometimes the courage is not in the asking. It's in the waiting, the trusting, the surrender. You see, silence is not emptiness. Silence is full of answers. When you sit in silence, you don't escape life. You finally meet it. You feel your breath, your fears, your dreams. You hear your own voice above the chaos, and that voice will guide you. We're conditioned to believe that we must hustle louder, speak faster, prove harder. But what if I told you that the most miraculous things come when you stop chasing, when you stop forcing, when you stop meeting and simply allow? Life is not a race, it's a rhythm. And like all beautiful music, it's the pauses, the silence that make it meaningful. Stay silent, not to hide, but to heal, not to run, but to rise, not to shrink, but to strengthen your connection with what matters most. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your energy speaks, your peace speaks, your silence speaks volumes. And if you trust that everything you need is already on its way, you'll stop begging and start becoming. So be still, be silent, and let everything you've ever dreamed of find its way to you. Thank you. Silence is power, not weakness. True strength is often found in stillness and reflection. Trust in divine timing. Everything unfolds as it should, when it should. Inner peace attracts outer success. A calm mind is a magnet for clarity, creativity, and opportunities. Observe more, react less. Growth happens when we listen more and speak less. The universe responds to stillness. When you stop forcing, life starts flowing. You already have the answers within. Silence helps you hear your intuition louder than the world's noise. Silence is power, not weakness. True strength is found in stillness and reflection. In a world that measures strength by how loud you speak, how fast you act, or how visibly you assert yourself, silence is often misunderstood. It's mistaken for weakness, passivity, or even fear. But in truth, silence is one of the most powerful forces in the universe. And the greatest leaders, thinkers, and visionaries throughout history have known the secret. True power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply listens. We live in an age of noise, notifications, opinions, pressure to respond, defend, post, react. We're encouraged to fill every space with sound, verbal or digital. But there is a quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't rush to answer. It doesn't react to provoke. It chooses silence, not because it has nothing to say, but because it knows the value of when and how to speak. Silence allows us to pause and reflect. It gives us room to observe, to understand, and most importantly, to connect with ourselves. Reflection is not wasted time. It's the birthplace of wisdom. When we take a moment to breathe, to sit with our thoughts without judgment, we begin to see patterns. We start to understand our motivations. We hear our intuition, that quiet voice that often gets drowned out by the noise of the world. Think about nature. The most powerful forces move in silence. The earth rotates without sound. The sun rises without asking for applause. Even the roots of a tree grow silently beneath the surface, yet they're the very foundation of life above. Similarly, human strength isn't always visible. A person who remains calm in chaos, who doesn't feel the need to argue to prove their point, who walks away rather than escalate, that person isn't weak. They are in control, and control over one's emotions, actions, and reactions. That's real power. Oprah Winfrey, who has inspired millions with her grace and clarity, once said, "In the stillness, we find our true selves." That stillness, that inner silence, is not empty. It is full of insight, creativity, and direction. Some of the best decisions you'll ever make won't come from shouting to be heard, but from sitting in quiet, asking yourself the hard questions, and listening for the honest answers. There's also a protective power in silence. Not every situation requires your energy. Not every argument deserves a response. When you master the art of silence, you start to realize that your peace is more valuable than proving your point. You choose battles wisely. You learn that not everything said to you deserves your attention, and not every challenge is worth stepping into. Silence is also a form of self-respect. It shows that you don't need to perform to feel valid. You don't need constant approval to feel worthy. You are enough, even in your stillest, quietest moments. And when you practice silence, not as avoidance, but as a conscious choice, you develop clarity. You tap into resilience. You no longer fear stillness. You embrace it as your sanctuary, your space to recharge, and your foundation for strength. So the next time the world pushes you to speak, act, or fight before you're ready, remember, silence is not surrender. It's preparation. It's strategy. It's strength wrapped in calm. And those who master it move through the world with a confidence that doesn't shout. It radiates. Silence is power. And when you learn to hold it with intention, you become unstoppable. Trust in divine timing. Everything unfolds as it should, when it should. There's a natural rhythm to life that doesn't follow your calendar, your deadlines, or your personal expectations. It follows something deeper, a divine intelligence, a universal flow that is always working in your favor, even when you don't understand it in the moment. You see, we live in a culture obsessed with speed. We want success now, love now, results now. We chase after things with such urgency that we forget the most important truth of all. The things meant for you will never miss you, but they will arrive when you're ready, not when you're restless. Divine timing isn't about luck or coincidence. It's about alignment. It's about preparing you behind the scenes, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, for the life you say you want. And sometimes that preparation doesn't look like progress. Sometimes it looks like stillness. Sometimes it looks like failure. Sometimes it looks like being passed over, delayed, or even denied. But let me tell you, rejection is not redirection. It's refinement. Delay is not denial. It's divine design. Think of the caterpillar. There's a period where it's not crawling. It's not flying. It's simply in a cocoon, still, silent, unseen. And yet that is when the transformation happens. That is when wings are forming. You can't rush that process. If you try to crack the cocoon too early, the butterfly never flies. And in the same way, if you try to force your path before you're ready, you sabotage what was always meant to bloom in its own season. Oprah Winfrey herself has said that she didn't always know where she was headed, but she learned to trust the process. She didn't chase every opportunity. She waited for the ones that felt aligned. And that's the secret. Divine timing works best when you stop controlling and start trusting. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part, staying faithful, staying disciplined, growing in the dark, and allowing the rest to unfold beyond your control. We often pray for clarity, for answers, for direction, but we don't like the waiting room. We want the solution before the lesson. But here's the truth. Sometimes the waiting is the lesson. Sometimes it's in the silence and uncertainty that you learn who you are, what you're made of, and what truly matters. So if you're in a season of waiting, don't panic. Don't compare your timeline to someone else's highlight reel. Don't mistake stillness for stagnation. You are being prepared for something greater than you can currently understand. Your dreams have not been forgotten. Your efforts are not in vain. You are not behind. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Let go of the need to rush. Let go of the fear that it won't happen. And most importantly, let go of the belief that you are in this alone. Because when you trust in divine timing, you begin to see delays as protection. You see no as not yet. You stop trying to bend life to your will, and instead, let life reveal its plan for you. Everything unfolds as it should, when you're ready, when it's time, when you've grown into the person who can hold it, honor it, and handle it. So breathe, be patient, be present, and trust what is meant for you is not just coming, it's on its way right now. Inner peace attracts outer success. A calm mind is a magnet for clarity, creativity, and opportunities. We often associate success with action, relentless work, long hours, networking, hustling, and while effort has its place, there's a deeper truth that many overlook. Your inner state shapes your outer reality. Inner peace is not a luxury, it's a foundation.
Without it, we become reactive, scattered, and blind to the very opportunities we seek. Imagine trying to see your reflection in a muddy, turbulent river. You can't. Everything is distorted. But when the water is still, crystal clear, you can see not only your reflection, but also everything around you. The same principle applies to the mind. When your thoughts are racing and your emotions are unsettled, you miss the intuitive nudges, the subtle signs, the creative sparks. But a calm mind becomes like still water. It reflects wisdom, insight, and vision. That's when things begin to flow, not because you're pushing harder, but because you're aligned. Oprah Winfrey often speaks about this alignment. She once said, "When you align with your purpose, when you align with your intention, the universe rises up to meet you." That alignment begins on the inside. It begins with peace. You don't need to be on a mountain or in a silent retreat to find it. Inner peace is cultivated moment by moment. It's found in how you respond to challenges, how you treat yourself when you fall, how you breathe through stress instead of breaking down. And here's the secret. Peace doesn't come after success. It precedes it. When you are grounded, you're not easily shaken. You make better decisions because you're not reacting from fear or insecurity. You communicate more clearly because your mind isn't cluttered with noise. You create more freely because your inner critic has quieted. Creativity is one of the greatest assets in life, and it only thrives in spaciousness. That space comes from peace. The most revolutionary ideas don't come when you're overwhelmed. They come in moments of silence, of stillness, of surrender. In that peace, you become more open, more receptive. Opportunities don't need to be chased. They start to find you because your energy becomes magnetic. You're no longer operating in desperation or neediness, but in confidence, in calm assurance that what is meant for you will arrive. That's not to say life won't test you. It will. But inner peace doesn't mean nothing bothers you. It means nothing controls you. You become the eye of the storm, the quiet center around which the chaos can swirl, but never consume. And this shift is powerful. People notice it. They feel it. When you walk into a room with calm confidence, it changes the dynamic. Others are drawn to your presence, your steadiness. That's leadership. That's influence. That's real success. So if you're looking to build something lasting, a dream, a relationship, a legacy, don't just focus on the outer strategies. Look within. Build the peace first. Make time for stillness. Practice mindfulness. Let go of what you can't control and watch how the world responds. Because when you're calm inside, the outside stops feeling so overwhelming. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop surviving and start thriving. Inner peace isn't the result of outer success. It's the cause. And once you truly embrace that, there is nothing you cannot achieve. Observe more. React less. Growth happens when we listen more and speak less. We live in a fast-paced world that rewards quick responses, immediate opinions, and constant engagement. The pressure to always have something to say, to jump into conversations, defend ourselves, or prove a point can be overwhelming. But the truth is, real growth doesn't come from how fast or loud we respond. It comes from how deeply we observe. Observe more, react less, is more than a philosophy. It's a lifestyle. It means choosing presence over impulsiveness. It means creating space between stimulus and response. That space, that sacred pause, is where wisdom lives. When we observe instead of react, we shift from being emotionally driven to being emotionally intelligent. We start to understand that not every opinion needs our input, not every disagreement needs our energy, and not every moment calls for our voice. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do in a heated situation is to say nothing at all, and instead, watch, learn, reflect. Observation isn't passive. It's an active practice of awareness. It's watching how people behave, how they speak, how they carry themselves, not to judge, but to understand. When you observe more, you begin to see patterns in others, and more importantly, in yourself. You catch your emotional triggers. You become aware of your habits. You start noticing how certain environments affect your peace, how certain words affect your confidence, how certain people either drain or energize you. This self-awareness is the foundation of all personal growth. You can't change what you don't see, and you can't see clearly if you're always reacting, listening more, and speaking less. also builds deeper connections. People don't want to be talked to, they want to be heard. And when you become the kind of person who listens without interrupting, who listens without judgment, who listens simply to understand, you become magnetic. Trust grows in your presence. Respect grows. Relationships flourish. Oprah Winfrey, who built an empire by mastering the art of conversation, has always emphasized the importance of listening. One of her most powerful insights is that every person, no matter who they are, wants to know one thing. Did you hear me? Do you see me? Did what I say matter to you? And you cannot make people feel seen or heard if you're constantly preparing your next response while they're still speaking. Observe more, react less. This also applies to the way we consume information. In a world full of noise, opinions, headlines, and half-truths, reacting impulsively to everything we see online only adds to the chaos. But when we pause, investigate, ask questions, and reflect, we begin to develop wisdom instead of anxiety. This principle helps us in leadership, in relationships, in conflict, and most of all, in mastering ourselves. Because when you stop reacting to everything around you, you start responding from a deeper place within you, a place of clarity, a place of peace, a place of power. So the next time you feel the urge to react, pause, take a breath, watch, listen, learn, let your silence speak. Let your presence lead, because in that stillness, you're not being passive, you're growing, you're evolving, you're becoming someone who no longer lets the world pull them in every direction, but someone who stands rooted, steady, and strong. Observe more, react less. That's where transformation begins. Keynote 5. Expanded. The universe responds to stillness. When you stop forcing, life starts flowing. We live in a world that praises hustle, celebrates control, and romanticizes the idea of making things happen. We're taught to grind harder, push further, and take life by the horns. While discipline and ambition are powerful tools, there comes a point where all the effort becomes force, and force breeds friction. Stillness, however, invites flow. When you stop forcing things to happen, the job, the relationship, the recognition, the dream, you create space, and in that space, something beautiful happens. Alignment, the universe, or whatever name you give to that higher intelligence, doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to energy, and stillness is the purest, most magnetic energy you can radiate. Stillness is not laziness. It's not inaction. It's the art of letting go of resistance. It's the wisdom of knowing when to act and when to wait. It's understanding that life is not always about doing more. Sometimes it's about being more. When you are still, you're not idle. You're becoming receptive. You stop screaming into the wind and start listening to the subtle whispers of guidance. You let inspiration find you rather than chasing it. You begin to notice things, synchronicities, signs, gentle nudges. The right people show up, the right doors open, the right ideas click into place, not because you forced them, but because you finally made room for them. Oprah Winfrey herself has often said, when you align with the flow of life, everything starts working for you. She didn't build an empire by chasing every opportunity or micromanaging the universe. She tuned in, stayed present, and trusted. She knew the difference between forcing and flowing. Look back on your life. How many times did things fall into place the moment you let go? That friendship that came out of nowhere, that job offer you didn't expect, the moment of clarity that hit you when you stopped trying to figure it all out. These weren't accidents. They were proof that you don't always have to push. Sometimes, the most powerful move is surrender. And let's be honest, forcing doesn't feel good. It's draining. It creates anxiety. It clouds your judgment. You start attaching your worth to outcomes. You operate from fear. The fear that if you don't control it all, it won't happen. But when you let go, when you trust the process and drop the pressure, you return to your natural state, calm, clear, confident. This is when life flows, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting it. Stillness is also the birthplace of creativity. Artists, writers, innovators, they all know this truth. Ideas don't emerge from chaos. They surface when the mind is quiet, when the soul is still. That's why the most life-changing realizations don't usually come in a brainstorming session. They hit you in the shower, on a quiet walk, or in the calm just before sleep. The universe is always trying to meet you halfway, but if you're constantly sprinting ahead, yelling, worrying, demanding, you'll miss the signs. You won't hear the call. Stillness is what allows you to tune in to the deeper wisdom that's always been there. So stop forcing, stop grasping, start trusting, breathe. Pause, be still, and watch how everything that's meant for you begins to flow, not in your time, but in perfect time. Because when you are still, the universe speaks, and it always delivers. You already have the answers within. Silence helps you hear your intuition louder than the world's noise. We live in a world overflowing with noise. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded by notifications, opinions, advertisements, deadlines, expectations, and endless chatter. Everyone is trying to tell us who to be, what to do, what success looks like, and how to get there. And in the midst of all that noise, we often lose connection with the most important voice of all, our own. But the truth is, you already have the answers within, the wisdom, the clarity, the direction. It's all there, not outside you, not in the next social media post or the next self-help book, but deep within your soul. The challenge is not that we don't have guidance. The challenge is that we can't hear it over the noise. That's where silence comes in. Silence isn't about emptiness. It's not about the absence of sound. It's about the presence of self. It is in silence that your inner voice gets louder. It is in silence that intuition, that deep, often subtle knowing, can finally speak to you clearly. You see, intuition is like a whisper. It doesn't shout. It doesn't compete. It waits. And the more you create quiet spaces in your life, the more that whisper becomes a guide, a compass, a light in the fog. Think about it. Have you ever had a moment of sudden clarity when you were alone? Maybe it was during a walk, in the shower, sitting by a window, or just lying awake at night. That wasn't randomness. That was your inner wisdom rising up, taking the space it needed to reach you. Great thinkers, creators, and leaders throughout history have known this. Oprah Winfrey, for example, speaks often about the importance of stillness. She shared how she takes time every morning to be silent, to connect, to listen, not to the world, but to herself, because she understands what many people never realize. When you stop seeking validation from the outside, you start finding truth on the inside. So what keeps us from listening to that inner voice? Fear, doubt, distraction. We often don't trust ourselves. We think someone else knows better. We hand over our decision-making power to others, to friends, to mentors, to the media, but no one lives your life but you, and no one knows what's best for your soul better than the soul itself. Silence is not a luxury, it's a necessity, it's a tool, it's a portal to yourself. When you sit in silence, truly sit, without your phone, without music, without noise, you begin to reconnect with your essence. Your mind might race at first. Old thoughts may come up. That's normal. But if you stay with it long enough, something beautiful happens. The noise starts to settle, and beneath it, you'll find stillness, a space where intuition begins to emerge. That still, small voice inside you. It's not small because it's weak. It's small because it's subtle, but when you give it space, it becomes your most powerful guide. You don't need to constantly ask others for advice. You don't need to wait for someone else's permission. You already know. The answers are within you, waiting patiently to be heard. Silence gives you access to that inner knowing, and once you hear it, you'll never be lost again, because even if the world is shouting, you'll know which way to go. So today, dare to be still, dare to be silent, dare to listen, because the truth you're searching for has been within you all along.